Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today putting together a little odds and ends video for you. We're kind of getting toward the end of the year and wrapping things up, and I wanted to kind of wrap up all the stuff we got stacked up over here. Before we go into the new year, I know a lot of people like to get acknowledged when they send stuff in, and it's always fun to share with you guys some of the stuff that we get in here as well. So we're going to be looking at my pile of stuff over here in just a minute. But before we do that, just a little personal update on some things that are going on with me right now and how it might affect this channel short term over the next month or so. Once again, this year I had a little medical procedure done back in May, and as was planned then, I've got a little follow-up procedure that needs to be done here this coming week. In fact, when you guys watch this video, if you're watching it live, it'll be the following day on that Tuesday. I have to have a little procedure done, nothing major, nothing significant, but what it is going to impact is my time in the shop for a period of time. I'm going to be pretty much limited again on what I can lift and what I can do physically for about 4 weeks, somewhere in there. That is going to really limit me getting out here and doing much in the shop. Now I'm hoping after about 2 weeks I can at least get out here and do a little bit of light duty piddling, and I've got a few little small projects that I can probably work into things. Then I just have to play it by ear. The good news is that I do have some video that I've been kind of saving up in anticipation of this. So I will have some content coming for you guys over the next couple of weeks, but I'm probably only going to be doing 1 video a week rather than 2 during this time, just to kind of stretch things out, to be totally honest with you. So anyway, again, nothing terribly major, but something that is going to get me out of the shop for a little while. And just wanted you guys to be aware. Yeah, I purposely plan to do this over the Christmas break. While it's not maybe personally the most ideal time to do it, with my real job, my regular job, we kind of hit the ground running pretty hard right after the first of the year, and I really wanted to get this out of the way. And we normally have a little break around Christmas time, so this is a good time for me to get it done where it's not interfering with my regular job as much. But it is going to have a bigger impact out here in my shop, because during that off time during the Christmas season is when I can get out here and get a lot of stuff done in the shop normally, but not this year. So we'll be back soon, and just hang in there. Again, we will have a few little things coming in, and just because you see me doing some heavy lifting doesn't mean that it was done after my procedure. Will have been done beforehand. So with that, I've got some stuff over here we're going to go through and share with you guys some things that have come into the shop. So up first here, we got a couple of books that were sent in. These came in from Andrew Pelton, and Andrew told me that he had retired a couple of years ago and kind of took up machining as a hobby and started watching my channel. And when he retired, I think he said that one of his friends who had retired sometime before him gave him some tooling and some stuff to go with his hobby, as well as these 2 books. And he wanted to pass them along, and anyway, he is passing the books along to me. These are Machine Tool Operation from McGraw-Hill, and let's see what the date is on them. I always like to see about when these things were published. 1959 was when this one was published, but they go back to 1919. They had printings in 1919, 1936, 41, 53, and this is the 49 version. And of course, they made updates to them throughout that time. Like a lot of textbooks that I have on machining, this is just a general overview of how to do machining work. Very good reference. What is interesting is I actually used this one, the volume 2 version, when I was getting ready to do my spiral gear cutting. They actually have a whole chapter in here on cutting spiral or helical gears, and it was a real good review. I've got a bunch of books that talk about how to do it. These were kind of handy because they were sitting over here in the shop when it came in, so I said, well, let me look in there, and I did read the chapter in here on cutting helical gears, and it was very helpful to me right here. I believe it's a section on helical gears. So anyway, very good stuff. I will definitely put these into my library, and they will probably be referenced again. I really like having these old time textbooks around. A lot of times when I'm doing something that maybe I haven't done before, or maybe just want to refresh on how to do something, it's good to go pull these down and just kind of read up on how the old timers did it. And that's usually how I go about doing it as well. So Andrew, thanks again for sending these along. We'll add them to the library. So up next, this is something that actually was picked up for me by a local friend, David King, who works out at the Georgia Museum of Agriculture, where I do a lot of my volunteer work at. And David kind of oversees the maintenance and restoration department out there. So we work together a lot, helping to keep all the equipment stuff working out at the museum. A couple of weeks ago, David was at a swap meet and he saw this sitting on a table. And he wasn't sure what it was, which kind of surprised me. I figured he would have known what it was. He knew it was a whistle, but he didn't know exactly what it was. He sent me a picture of it, and I knew immediately what it was because I've got another one. This is one that I had picked up probably close to 25, 30 years ago now at an antique store somewhere along the way. But what these are caboose whistles. They were whistles that were mounted on a caboose on a train. Back in the day, you used to have the brakeman and conductor and stuff would ride in the caboose at the back end of the train. They'd keep an eye on the train, and they were very involved in the operation of the train. In modern days, the caboose has pretty much gone out the window. When I was a boy, you always knew it was the end of the train when you saw the little caboose go by, but kids this day and age, they don't get to have that joy in life and seeing the little caboose and waving at the guys up in there. That is a fond memory of my past. But anyway, what these would be used for on the caboose is they would have these mounted on the back of the caboose. They were actually not steam, but they were powered by air. They would actually use the air in the air brakes on the locomotive. And if the train was backing up, and going through a grade crossing, or for whatever reason the people on the caboose need to get attention, they could go outside and just push this little button and blow the whistle, and it would warn people, okay, hey, we're about to back through a grade crossing or whatever it was. So David found this one. This one is, it looks like it's been painted orange at one time. It's not in the greatest condition. There's a little spring valve on here with a button on it. This one here, it's got the valve in it, but there's just this little tab sticking out of it. There's no spring in there holding it shut. When you put air pressure on it, it will hold. But this is something I'm probably going to do a little restoration on and see if I can get it correct. Since I have this one, I can copy what's on this one over on this one and get it restored back. They're just kind of interesting, part of our history, and something kind of cool, something kind of neat. Anyway, I kind of like mine. I'll get it out every now and hook it up to the air hose and toot it. You know, it doesn't make a real loud whistle. It's not like a steam whistle or a horn on a locomotive, but it's loud enough to get people's attention. So anyway, a caboose whistle, if you've never seen one. Like I said, runs on air pressure, would have been mounted on the caboose. These are pretty much identical, just one needs a little bit of work done to it. Anyway, David, thanks for picking that up for me. He told me what the price was, and I said, yeah, just get it for me, I'll reimburse you. And he got it for me, and he just gave it to me for all the help we do out at the museum. So I was very pleased with that. Up next, we got another book, and this one was sent in by Alexander Shapira. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, I apologize. He's up in New Jersey, and he had picked this up. I forget where he told me, but it's a fairly modern book. Let's see the date on it. This one's dated 1992. They have editions going back to 1955 with multiple printings in here. 1992. Okay, that's right. But this is a book all about steam. Now, most of the stuff in here is honestly a little bit more modern steam applications than what I typically deal with. A lot of this has to do with power plants and big steam plants, but nonetheless, I'm sure it's full of lots of good information. And like I've always said, having reference books around when you're working on stuff, being able to go pull stuff out and get technical information, it's just invaluable. So this is definitely something that I will add to the library. And Andrew, thank you so much for sending it. Babcock and Wilcox, I think they're still around. So thank you very much. Next item here comes from Chris Kramer at Kramer Machine Works. And about a month or so ago, if you missed it in my videos, we lost our lab golden mix, Elliot. I'm sure many of you guys probably saw him in a lot of my videos. He was a constant companion of me out here. If I was in the shop, he wanted to be out here with me. And unfortunately, we were coming home from church one Sunday morning, And as we were getting ready to pull off the main road up there down the road to our house, we noticed poor old Elliot laying over in the ditch. He had wandered about a quarter of a mile from the house, gotten up on the main road, and gotten ran over that morning. Very sad event. You know, I'm going to really, really miss this dog. He was just a constant companion to me out here, and I'm starting to get over it a little bit. I won't lie. I did a lot of crying there for a week or so after we lost him, but I had put something up on Facebook, I think, or whatever, and about it, and he had seen it. And back a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, or whenever it was, when we lost Josie, the little calico cat who was around here forever and ever, and was also got a lot of cameo appearances in a lot of my earlier videos. When we lost her, he had done a little item very similar to this, and he asked me if he'd like to do one for Elliot, and I said absolutely. So he was kind enough to send this in, and this is very, very much appreciated. I appreciate it very much. This will help us remember Elliot for many years to come. So thank you very much. This is just a little magnet. It comes right off, but he had stuck that on there from his company as well. Anyway, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Going to miss that dog. So up next, I got another item that was sent in to me by John Germain. I think is how you pronounce his name. He's up in Oregon, if I remember right. John is the guy who helped me a while back. He found some parts for my Kerner Trekkie mill that I have. He found a parking attachment, and he also found, I think, a drive gear and actually a shaper attachment, I think, too, that goes to that mill machine. And he found all this stuff at a machinery dealer up in his area that had a bunch of parts and pieces and stuff. And he was kind enough to go by then when I was looking for some things. He actually found a few things that I wasn't looking for, but let me know about them. I took advantage of the opportunity. But when he saw my video a couple of weeks ago that I didn't have the right tailstock or footstock for my Model K dividing head, he said, hey, do you want me to go back over and take a look and see if I can find one? I said, absolutely, that'd be awesome. He did. And I had done some homework and sent him some pictures of what to look for. And sure enough, he found this one right here. This is the proper tailstock. The one I had, I don't know if you can see it or not, but if you look, the center of this of the center here doesn't line up right over the hole, the slot. It's over about a half an inch from the center to center. Whereas the one from my Model H dividing head, the center of this is directly over the center of that. So when I went to put my other tailstock onto the new dividing head, it didn't line up just right. We were able to get around it temporarily, but I was on the lookout for a true Model K dividing head tailstock. And sure enough, he found this one. Now, this one is for a 10-inch Model K dividing head. Mine is a 12-inch. The only difference being is that mine is a little bit higher. It's about 1 inch higher, but you know what? No problem. Even though this one isn't the exact right one, there's a little rack and pinion system in here that lets you raise and lower this. It's really designed. There's also some screws here where you can tilt it if you're doing like a bevel gear or something like that, where you need to change the angle of it. So there's adjustments in here so we can adjust this and make it work. The main thing is that it's lined up correctly on the front. Yeah, I would have loved to have found the right one for a 12-inch dividing head, but in the meantime, this one will suit me well and it will get the job done. And even if I never get the right one, this one right here will be more than adequate. So anyway, he found that and purchased it on my behalf and was kind enough to ship it back. While he was there, I also put him on the lookout for one of these. And he was, again, able to find one of these as well. What is this? So with my parking attachment that I have over on my mill machine, I haven't installed it yet because I really needed this piece right here. This is what goes up on the top of whatever attachment you have. In my case, the low lead vertical head or universal head, I guess is what it is. To go to the parking attachment, you need this little ball, and it kind of hangs from this ball from that parking attachment. Normally they just have an eye hook in it, so you can hook like a crane or something like that. I've been using my gantry, or not my gantry, but my engine hoist to put it on and off. Now that I've got this, I think I can get that parking attachment installed and actually have it hanging over there and make it much easier to pull it on and off. So anyway, I sent him again some pictures of one of these. He dug around and found one and was kind enough to ship it to me. I really could use 2 of these because I've got the shaper attachment too, and it'd be nice to be able to hang it on there, although one will probably be fine. I really can only hang one head on there at a time, so it's not that big of a deal. But I was hoping he could find 2, but he only found 1. But this will be a huge help and allow me to get that parking attachment set up. So John, thank you so much again for taking your valuable time. He said he's retired and looking for things to do anyway, so I gave him some homework and he produced. And I greatly appreciate digging these things out. And like I said, I reimbursed him for the cost of them plus the shipping, but he got me a good deal on them and greatly appreciate it. Up next, I got a box here of manuals and what do you call them, catalogs and stuff. This was sent in by John Mercier, who is up near Asheville, North Carolina. John has actually been to the shop, and I forget the story exactly where these came from, but he had a bunch of stuff he wanted to donate to the cause for us to get scanned in and uploaded to the website, my VintageMachinery.org website, if we didn't already have them. So this is actually an index of leads and indexing for the Model H dividing head, which I've actually been using a version of this quite frequently. I think we already have this particular one, but there's probably stuff in here that will need to get scanned and added. There's a Powermatic band saw, some digital scales. What is that? Can't tell what brand lathe that is, but anyway. Herrig, they made surface grinders. Here's some Brown and Sharp OD grinder stuff that's in here. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4 universal grinding machines. Model X repair parts, Lodge and Shipley. This is the same lathe we have out at the museum. I think they've actually got a copy of this, although I think theirs is a photocopy. That might end up going to the museum. Darex grinder. Here's a Model K, so just a manual for a Model K mill, which is mine's a Model H, but it's basically the same. 2K, 3K replacement parts manual, K and T. Here's some more modern K and T milling machine manual, parts manual for K and T. Cincinnati, number 2, 3, and 4 dial type milling machines. Looks like a parts list and service catalog. And other from Cincinnati Millicron, numbers 1-12 and 1-18 plain automatic milling machines. So anyway, got a nice selection of manuals and stuff here. I will go through these and see which ones might need to be scanned. Some of these anyway, we may already have scanned, so we won't rescan them if they're already up there. But it's always nice to have this kind of stuff to add to the library over at VintageMachinery.org. John also sent along this little item here, and I'm not exactly sure what the application for this was. It's made by a German company. What is that? Schnell Taster something. It is in inches. It's not metric. But it's a gauge, obviously, for measuring something. But what's interesting is that the gauge moves when you squeeze these together. So it's like, but normally I would expect it, to have the tension going the other way. But there's some points on the inside, so it's like almost you have to go up to something and squeeze it and measure, and it gives you a thickness. So I'm not exactly sure what this whole thing is about, but we will figure. I don't know if we'll figure it out or not. To me, it almost acts like it's reading backwards from what it should. Again, I'm not just quite sure what it was made for. This was probably a gauge for doing a very specific task, and it's probably not good for anything except doing that very specific task. But I'd be interested if you know what that is. leave it down in the comments. I'd be interested in knowing more about this particular instrument. Up next is a very nice gift that was sent to me by Montgomery Pierce up in Michigan. And Montgomery told me that he has a nephew. His nephew's name is David Youngman, who is an artist. And recently he was at the Michigan Polar Express event. And while he was there, he sketched their steam locomotive. And when he saw it, he thought of me, thought it'd be nice. He talked to his nephew. He acquired the piece of artwork and was kind enough to send it along to me. So very nice sketch drawing here of a nice steam locomotive. Definitely something worthy of framing and hanging up. And this will probably go into my office or the house somewhere. Montgomery, thank you very much for sending that along. And please pass along my kudos to your nephew, David. He is definitely quite the artist. Thank you very much. Up next, some more tailstocks for dividing heads. These were sent in by Larry Oswald. Again, he saw my dilemma that I had looking for a tailstock, and at exactly that precise moment, he had noticed where he was working that they'd been doing some cleaning up, and they had thrown a couple of dividing heads and tailstocks into the dumpster. Yes, believe it or not. He went out and snatched the two tailstocks out. He said that the dividing head, unfortunately, when they had thrown in there, when they dumped them in, they were really damaged and not serviceable, so he didn't bother digging those out. But he did dig these out. And he told me that he thought that one was a Kearney Trucker and one might be Cincinnati, because that was the two dividing heads that were in there. And I can tell you that this is definitely a Kearney Trucker dividing head tailstock for a Model H dividing head. This is exactly like the one that I had for my 10-inch Model H dividing head. This one over here, I'm not quite as sure about, but like I said, he said that there was a Cincinnati in there, so he kind of thought this one might go to a Cincinnati. I told him, these really weren't the right size and stuff for my mill, but he said, hey, if you don't want these things, they're going back in the dumpster. And he volunteered to send them to me. So I've got these. These are kind of spare parts for me. So if somebody out there is looking for anything like this, let me know. Maybe we can do a little horse trading or something and find them a new home, because I really don't have a need for myself. But thank you, Larry, for rescuing them nonetheless. At least they're not in the dumpster and going to the landfill. Hopefully we can find a home for these and get them back in someone's hands that can really use them. So there you go. Again, thanks, Larry, for rescuing those for me. Up next, I got a couple of more catalogs that were sent in to me by G.H. Fell, who is actually in England, United Kingdom. And he was kind enough. He contacted me a while ago and told me he had a couple of books and wanted our catalogs, early catalogs, and wanted to know if I was interested, and absolutely I was. And he told me about this one here from the Defiance Machine Works, which is a really neat catalog. I've actually seen this catalog before. I don't have one. I guess I do now. But this is a really cool catalog. It's got some really neat old vintage machinery in it, more woodworking than metalworking, but just some really, really cool stuff. So this one dates from 1910. The Defiance Machine Works out of Defiance, Ohio, and they specialize in all kinds of woodworking machinery, as you would expect: joiners, table saws, planers, etc., band saws. But what is really neat about this company, in my mind, is when it was made in 1910, or when this stuff was being built in 1910, their company really specialized a lot in the wagon carriage trade. That was a very specialized trade, even early automobiles. So much of the stuff was done with wood back in those days. In fact, even in the early automobiles, the bodies, the coaches and stuff were often made from wood, and they were made from the same people that made, wooden carriages and coaches and stuff like that. And when you kind of get in here, some of the stuff is really kind of specific to that. Here's a tenoning machine for tenoning. It could be spokes on a wagon wheel or handles or whatever. One of the machines that's in here that I bookmarked, because it's something that I've always just kind of been on the lookout for one. I never have found one, but either by Defiance, or there's lots of companies that made this, but this was a handle lathe or spoke lathe, and it basically is kind of a pattern lathe. It would follow a pattern that you would put in there, and it would turn out these irregular shaped pieces. This is just one style. This one here, you actually put cutters on it that would be spinning, and it would be rocking in and out as the part was being made to give that more elliptical shape. Or if you think of like an axe handle or something like that, it's not round, but yet it's oval shaped. I've always thought these machines were neat. I would love to find an old, really a handle lathe is what I would like for making like axe handles and maul handles and stuff like that. Don't know why, I just think they're neat. But some other stuff in here. Again, a lot of this stuff was really specific for the carriage trade, wagons, coaches, stuff like that. Here's a big bending machine for bending the felloes on wagon wheels or whatever you needed to bend, which is just a really, really cool machine. I would love to have seen one. And one thing that's interesting is I've always been fascinated with the coach building, wagon building, and stuff like that, wheelwright work. It's always been very interesting to me. And one of my favorite YouTube channels that I like watching is Ingles Coach Shop. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. It's a gentleman up in Montana that restores old coaches of all kinds and wagons and you name it. And a lot of the tools that are in here, he has a bending machine. His is the one that he built rather than finding one of these. I'm sure he would have loved to have found one of these, but it's very obviously he more or less copied some of these designs. But here's one for planing the two sides of a felloe off of a wagon wheel. So lots of wagon wheel specific stuff in here. Drilling and mortising the holes in these things. So anyway, just some really, really neat things. Here's a tire bending machine for bending the tires that go on wagon wheels. Here's a rim finishing machine that just kind of, it's almost like a planer, I think, that kind of makes that outside ring perfectly round. So just some really neat stuff. I'm really proud to have this book because, like I said, I've seen it before, but I've never actually owned a copy of it. Really, really neat book. Defiance Machine Works. The other one he sent me was a catalog from Yates America. Yates America is another manufacturer of woodworking machinery. And this one, I think, dates from roughly the same time period. I don't know if there's an actual date in this one or not. Well, I don't see a date handy, but they, again, were manufacturers of woodworking machinery. They had all kinds of really nice molders, stickers, you name it, in their line. They were a very prolific company that made stuff way up into the modern day, and this is a little bit more of an earlier catalog, but still very well built stuff. And the guys in the woodworking world, this is a company that's pretty prized, and they had a very wide selection of stuff that they made back in the day as well. So anyway, two really cool books. I don't know if these have already been scanned and digitized up on my website. Again, if not, we will definitely get them there. But I'm just excited to have actual hard copies of these books because for my own personal collection, because they're just cool. Up next comes a gift from S. Bright. I don't have his first name, but he is also in the UK. And this showed up the other week. I wasn't sure what it was, wasn't really expecting it. But he had sent along a couple of very nicely done pins. And these I'm pretty sure he made from kits, wood turning, whatever. But one of them is a really nice writing pen here. And the other one is also a pen, but this one is a fountain pen. Has a cartridge that goes in there. And I'm just going to tell you right now, my wife has already seen this, and she is planning on stealing the fountain pen from me. She has, in recent years, actually started collecting fountain pens. She is an English teacher by training and spent most of her career. She's actually an administrator in the high school now, but spent many years in the classroom as an English teacher, has a couple of English degrees, and she enjoys writing, and she enjoys using a fountain pen. And she has kind of started collecting both vintage fountain pens as well as new ones. And I really don't understand what her allure is to a fountain pen, I'll be honest with you, but she doesn't understand what my allure is to all this old machinery that I have in my shop. So we leave each other alone, and we both kind of do our thing there. But anyway, when I got these, I showed them to her, and she said, that's mine. So I'm going to hang on to this one and use it because I really like it. But she's going to steal the fountain pen from me. I'm just going to tell you right now. And she is excited about it. So anyway, thank you very much for sending these along. Very nice gift, and I greatly appreciate it, as does my wife, Julie. Up next, a couple more books. These were sent in by Bill Julian up in Connecticut, and he had told me he had some of these that didn't really need them. These are actually new books, but they're new books about old machines. So, right up my alley. These are two books by Ken Cope. Ken Cope was a author that really went through and did a lot of historical research on a lot of the different makers and manufacturers of all kinds of machinery and tooling and stuff. And over many years, he published lots of different books on different topics. They're great, great reference books. I've got several books by Ken Cope in my collection, and always, if I see anything, something that I don't have from him, I try to pick it up and grab it. You can still order this stuff new right now. Pretty sure you can anyway. This one is on the makers of American machinist tools. So, you got companies in here that made the micrometers and calipers and you name it, the precision measuring tools going way back into the day. Nowadays we don't really have that many choices. It's Starrett, Mitutoyo, I guess Brown Sharp's still around, a few other, makers of the good stuff, the high quality stuff. And then of course there's lots of offshore brands of stuff. But this is really a nice historical going through pretty much a lot of these companies that probably most of us, including me, never even heard of. So that'd be a really nice reference for if I come across something weird and don't recognize the name, I can look them up and find out more about them in here. The second one is about American planers, shapers, and slotters, the builders of these. So again, the companies that made these types of equipment. And he's got a little bit of a history on the company and a little bit of, catalog pictures and stuff of the machines. And this one specifically is on planers, shapers, and slotters. So two nice little books. Again, we'll add these to the reference library. But I'm sure that they will come in handy at some point in time. So again, thank you, Bill, for sending those along. Well, there we go. Another episode of Odds and Ends in the books. And speaking of books, I got a bunch of books to put into the library up at the house. So I'm going to be toting these up to my office here when I leave the shop. But anyway, that is going to be a wrap on this video. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always appreciated. Hit that bell icon to get notifications of new videos. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And again, as always, a big, huge thank you to all the supporters out there who support this site, my website, VintageMachinery.org, etc., through Patreon and PayPal and other means. It's greatly appreciated, and we really could not do everything we do without it. In fact, over Christmas, we'll be using some of the proceeds from you guys' donations. I've got a college student that's home for the Christmas break that's going to be helping me do some scanning, getting a lot of this stuff digitized and put up on the website. So it's through funds that you guys donate that really enables us to be able to do that and me to actually get someone to help me with it, because as you can imagine, I don't have a lot of time to do that kind of work myself, between a full-time job, a family, and making content and doing stuff out here in the shop. So guys, with that, we're going to sign off. As always, a big, huge thank you to everybody out there, and we will catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.